Welcome to Introduction to Maya 2016. In this lesson we'll be covering how to navigate in the 3D viewport. When you first launch Maya, this is pretty much the scene that you're going to get. I've added 3 primitive shapes here just for a reference point within our scene. But you'll see a grid in the center here. This is the center of Maya's world where we see the intersection of the 2 thicker lines crossing. This is considered 0, 0, 0 space. So we have X, Y, and Z coordinates all coming together here in the center. And this is, again, the center of Maya's world. We can see our coordinates down here, X, Y, and Z. So Z is running along this axis right here. X is running along this axis. And Y is running up and down. So the way I'm moving around in my scene here, I'm holding down the Alt key with the left mouse button. This is going to allow us to orbit around our scene. So we are looking through a camera, and it's the perspective camera as we see down here. And this is just allowing us to rotate around the center point of that world space right here. So holding down the Alt key again and the middle mouse button or the scroll wheel, whichever you have, you'll see a different icon come up here. This is allowing us to pan up and down and left to right. And then again holding down the Alt key and the right mouse button, another icon comes up, and this allows us to truck in and out of our scene or dolly in and out. So we're not zooming up on the scene here, we're actually moving in towards it within the camera. Okay, so a quick way for us to move in and out of different panel layouts is to use the space bar. Currently I'm in the perspective view. If I go ahead and just tap the space bar, this brings up the 4-panel view. And wherever I hover over with my mouse, I can tap the space bar again and it will take me into that particular panel. And if I tap again, it will take me back out to the previous one. Okay. So this is a quick way to move in and out of panels. You can also hold down the space bar and we have a marking menu that comes up. I'm going to cover this a little bit more in another lesson. But if I right mouse click, this also brings up a marker for these different views that I was just talking about. So if I wanted to just very quickly go into the front view, I can do that. Click and hold. We can go to the top view, side view, and back to perspective. Okay, so we have a number of different ways, depending on your workflow and what you get comfortable with, that allows you to move in and out of these different panels. Okay, moving on, I'm just going to cover some of the basics here in the viewport. We have a number of icons running along the top here, as well as menus that are specific to the viewport. So if you click and hold on these, there's a number of different settings that we can have under here. Shading modes. And under lighting, we're currently using the Maya's default lighting setup, so it's just a single light in here that's illuminating the scene. If we added other lights here, we would be able to turn them on and off. And show allows us to turn on things within our scene. I'm going to go ahead and tear off this menu here so we can take a look at everything. So this is everything kind of defaulted on. You know, if we were to toggle the grid on and off, we could do that right here. Okay, if I toggled on and off polygons, we have 2 polygons in the scene here, the cube and the sphere. Okay, so I'm just going to collapse that down. And moving on, we have 3 different renderers to choose from. The default is the Viewport 2.0. I'd recommend sticking with this one if you can. The other ones are fine, they're just going to look a little bit different. They don't give you as much of the features that you would get in the Viewport 2.0, especially when you start getting into texturing and lighting. And then over here we have panels, so this allows us to work within our panel here. We can create a new perspective camera. We can go into stereo, orthographic, so this allows us to look in a flat mode or a draft mode with the front, side, and top views. So this is very important when we're bringing in our image planes, which might be a character. We would have a turnaround of a character, the front, side, and top views of a character, and we would drop them into those particular cameras to view them. We can also look through selected. Right now we are looking through the perspective camera, so that's the one that is selected right now. You can also look through things like lights, allowing you to set things up a little more accurately. And under the panel here, we have a number of different options that we can pull up here for things that we may want to view within our panel. Hypergraph. And then we can customize and do our own layouts here. So we may want to have like a two-panel view right here, side to side. So right now I've got the perspective camera. That was our original view, and it's pulled up the top camera right here. So we're looking down on our scene here. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So we can save these. We can also come up with our own layout, tear them off, and we can go in and edit them as well. So we can pretty much customize our panel layouts any way we want to. Over here along the side we have some shortcuts to these panels here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the top one. That brings us back to our perspective camera. If you ever get lost within Maya, which happens quite a bit when you're a new user, you may get stuck on a top view and not know how to get out of it. You can either come back and click on one of these here. We'll bring you back to perspective. You can also come over here and under panel perspective you can choose that perspective camera. And just moving down here we have a 4-panel layout. We can go side by side here with the outliner. The outliner shows you everything within your scene. So here's my cube, the NURBS cone, and a sphere that I created. We also have the 4 different cameras that I mentioned here that are part of that 4-panel layout. So these are default cameras that are always going to be within your scene. There's the default lighting set that I mentioned, and then just the default objects, so everything within the scene here. And just some of the other ones here. This is used mostly for animation. And then down here we've got the hypergraph that comes up, allowing us to choose different materials for our scene. Okay, I'm just going to come back to the perspective camera. And then just covering some of these icons here sort of quickly. These are all shortcuts to everything within the pull-down menus. So these are functions or tools that are used most frequently within the viewport. So you can access your camera over here. You can see some of the information about my camera came up over here. This is the perspective camera. You can see that right here. It says perspective. Shows you where it is within Maya's space. It's got an aperture to it. It's got a focal length, f-stop. Okay. And this brings up all the attributes. So the next icon over here, if I hover over there, it says camera attributes. But this is all the attributes for that particular camera in the scene. Okay, so I can create bookmarks for my scene. I can also come in and add image planes, as I mentioned before. We also have something called a grease pencil, which is very nice. This is useful for animation. So this allows you to come in and draw within your scene here. So if I want to say, I want this particular cube over here, please move it over here. I want it that direction. So this is just nice for either giving direction or sketching out animation path or giving somebody notes. Okay, so the next icon over here is the grid that can toggle on and off, which was the same as toggling it on and off right here. So that's just the shortcut out here. I'm going to go ahead and come back out of this. I was in the grease pencil still. Okay, we have a film gate. So this allows you to see exactly what your camera is seeing. Sometimes it gets clipped by the viewport. And this tells you what size we're working within. You can set up a field chart, so safe action and title action here. Okay? Go ahead and turn all of those off. Okay? This next group of icons allows you to choose different ways to view your geometry within the scene. So I can go to wireframe and toggle that on and off. So back out here. I can choose the default material. I can also use wireframe on shaded. That's what this is called here. So it puts a blue outline of the geometry over top of the shaded. And if I had textures on, I could toggle that on and off as well. This is using all the lights within the scene, so everything is not illuminated now. Turn that off. And if I had a light set up in here, I would be able to toggle on and off the shadows. And then moving down here, we have an ambient occlusion. This would put a soft shadow in, motion blur, as well as anti-aliasing. So this covers most of the icons that we use here. We have a few additional ones down here. The default space that we're working in is sRGB gamma. We can change the gamma space depending on if we're using a different type of renderer, such as Arnold. I have Arnold loaded up in here. So just know that there's different gamma spaces that we can work within. So this covers all the basics of navigating in the 3D viewport, and in the next lesson we'll go over the user interface.